Happy Little Trees with Ms.Boley and inspired by Bob Ross. Bob Ross was an American landscape painter who had a TV show called The Joy of Painting. He used the technique that we're going to learn today and he called it painting happy little trees. You can still see Bob Ross's show The Joy of Painting on Netflix today. Why are we doing this? Well, we're going to paint a watercolor landscape and we're going to need to learn how to paint trees. We're also going to keep learning about mixing colors and we're going to try applying paint without having a pencil drawing first. So for this project, we'll need our visual journal or a sheet of watercolor paper. We will be using a pencil for just drawing one thing. We'll use our watercolor sets, a plastic tray for mixing our paints, a paintbrush, preferably a small or medium-sized brush, a cup of water, and some paper towel. All right, let's paint. Okay, so I'm first going to demonstrate the technique of how to do the happy little trees, and then I will go onto my actual sheet of paper. This is just a practice. So I'm going to do a green tree. So I'm going to start to wake up the green paint and I'm going to mix a wash on my little tray with not too much water, with more paint than water, so it's quite dark. Okay, so the type of tree that I'm going to paint is an evergreen type tree. So I will start off by just doing a vertical line straight up and down, and then what I'm doing is I'm just kind of tapping my brush side to side and a little bit up and down in certain areas, and I'm being really gentle and I'm just kind of doing a zigzag back and forth sort of motion with my hand and creating that triangle shape of those evergreen trees. So this doesn't look super like a really realistic tree, but it does give the sort of impression of a tree, an evergreen tree. And I like that some areas are darker than others, some areas are lighter. So then what I did was I dipped my brush into my water and I just drew a little horizon line with my water. And the trees, like the paint is gonna just go down into that area and it's going to make it look like the tree has a shadow. So it's really cool. It's a really cool and easy way to make trees. So then if I want to, I can just take a little bit more darker paint. So I mixed some dark green, a little bit of black in there. And I'm again just tapping my brush on certain areas to have a range of darkness and lightness. So that is a happy little tree. Okay, so now we're going to do a row of happy little trees. So I am going to use a pencil and draw a horizontal line very lightly, just so that I know where all my trees are going to be sort of on that horizon line. Okay, so now it's up to me. I can decide what colors I'm going to use. I have decided that I'm going to do rainbow order, and so I'll just follow the order mostly of my paint set. But you do whatever colors you want. Just make sure that you choose a different color for each tree. We'll get really good at switching back and forth. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm taking my brush and I'm wetting the area underneath the horizontal line that I have drawn. So that's gonna it's gonna allow the paint to blend into that bottom area. Okay, so I'm starting out with red. So I will do a wake up of the red paints. I'm not going to do a wash in the tray right now. I'm just waking up the paints and getting the paint onto my brush. Now I'm trying to figure out how many trees I'm going to have space for. So I will do the same exact technique that I did before. So vertical line, but this time I already have the water painted down there. And then gentle side to side tapping in a zigzag motion. Okay, you may need some practice to get your trees looking like trees and not like blobs. Sometimes my trees look like blobs as well, and if that happens, I can use the lifting technique and just take away some of the paint, and usually that makes them look awesome. So there's my tree number 1 in red. And so now I'm just going to continue on doing exactly the same thing. I'm going to do orange, I'm going to do yellow, and I will fast forward through that part. There's a couple things that I want to say about color mixing, but I'll do that in just a second. So for this tree, I want to make a greenish yellow. So I've made a little puddle of water on my palette, and now I am going to add some green, and then I'm going to rinse my brush off so I don't contaminate my yellow paint, and then I'm going to swish the brush with water on it around in my yellow paint. So we've learned how to mix a wash, and this is exactly the same. We're just now mixing 2 colors together. And that will be my next color for my next tree. So do whatever colors you like and maybe try to mix one color of your own. And remember, I'm allowing my trees to slightly overlap, so they are touching each other slightly. And because I'm doing that with the wet watercolor, they are all blending together. Another thing you want to think about is how tall you're going to make your trees. So notice how all my trees are not the same height. They're all different heights. So you want to avoid trying to make them all exactly the same height, because that's not how trees look in real life. They are all different. We want to add some visual interest. And then finally, if your water at the bottom is starting to dry out and your paint isn't going down into that bottom below the horizon line area, you can just add some more water there. And again, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to do a blue, a green, a blue, and a purple tree. So for your tree art, your happy trees, you'll aim to do around 3 to 5 trees and trying out some different color mixing as you go. I found for this was that the darker colors like blue and purple and red actually worked better than the lighter ones like yellow and yellow-green. We could be done there, or we could do this optional extension. So that's what it looks like. It looks amazing. But I've let it dry, and now for this optional extension part, all I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a little bit more darker areas to the trees. So I'm going to add kind of like a second layer where I'm using less water and more paint. So I've just mixed some red, and I'm just adding a little bit more darker red areas just to give a little bit more depth. And another thing I can do is if I want to be even darker, I can mix the complementary color into my paint so that it's just slightly, a bit more brown. So I've mixed a bit of green into that red, and there you can see I have sort of a shadow on my tree. Just makes it look a bit more three-dimensional. So this is totally optional, just for those of us that really want to try out and extend our technique. You can absolutely leave it how it is because it looks wonderful. So I will fast forward through the remainder. I'm just going to continue on with adding some more shadows to my trees, and that is that. Thanks for watching. Can't wait to see your happy little trees.